The Gina and Maddie podcast.
Last night, boil water alert went out on the Central Coast Council's Facebook and Instagram page, and then I saw it popping up on the Central Coast Reddit thread that's been rolling around, and there's quite a clear message that's been put out, and I thought probably the sensible thing to do here is just to go straight to the horse's mouth, and you don't get much higher up than the CEO of Central Coast Council, David Farmer, who joins us on the line. Good morning, David.
Good morning, guys.
Okay, so what do we know so far, David, that we're pretty much told to be boiling our water if we live in some parts of the coast?
Yes, certainly. If you live in Terrigal, north of Avoca Beach, Copacabana, McMaster's Beach, Pickett's Valley, Erina Heights and Kincumber, you should boil your water until further notice in an abundance, I guess what they call in an abundance of caution. Essentially what happened yesterday, we received water samples. We sample our water that gets produced by our water treatment plants constantly. So that's the water that comes out of the river and then gets filtered. That's constantly tested. But we also test the water within the reservoirs and the pipe system on a rotating basis. And we identified one particular location, which is Terrigal Reservoir, that had elevated levels of E. coli. And that's unusual and very difficult to explain. But given the sample results, it was decided in conjunction with New South Wales Health that we would put a boiled water alert on and we'd do a second set of tests. So we're waiting for the second set of tests. The protocol is when you get that second set of tests are formally done by an external lab in conjunction with New South Wales Health, and we're waiting for those results later this afternoon.
So, David, can you explain to us, and it's a hard question, but how did that happen? Why is that in the water?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Typically what happens is you've got a water treatment plant, which is basically a big set of filters that takes river water or dam water, which goes in green more or less, or generally, and then comes out clear.
Yeah.
And that has fluorine in it, which prevents antibacteria build up during the process and ends up in our water supply. And it goes through a series of pipes and into reservoirs, which are those big tanks that you see on the top of the hills, and then eventually down through into our taps. An elevated E. coli level in a reservoir is a very strange thing to happen. Sometimes you do get low levels of contamination in a reservoir because an animal, like a snake or something like that, might get in and die. But that's normally fairly low and is dealt with reasonably easy because some of these reservoirs are very, very large. But the reading was sort of abnormal. So one of the potential problems is that the reading is incorrect, the test results are incorrect.
Yeah.
The other one was that there was some evidence of human activity around the reservoir, and so there was some concern that might have been a source as well. So
we get an update this afternoon around 3:30 is what's been said that for that secondary result, and that's when you'll find out more information. More information,
and we know whether it's serious. We've done some internal assessments, and we're a little bit optimistic.
Okay, good.
But the boiled water alert stays, and in abundance of caution, you should be boiling your water if you live in those suburbs, or if you're using water sourced from those suburbs until later this afternoon, when we'll be able to provide advice. So
the best case scenario this afternoon is that you'll come out and go, or an announcement will come out and go, look, we've done the results, it's all clear, everything's all good. But maybe just boil your water for a little bit longer just to be safe. Or it'll be, okay, no, we might need to drain the reservoirs and you need to continue boiling your water, but we'll just have to stick around till later this arvo to find out. And we're optimistic that it will be okay, but we need the external testing, and we'll provide that advice to the community. And our advice to the community, and New South Wales advice to the community, is continue to boil your water until we get further advice.
Great. David, just...
If you live in those suburbs. Yeah. Only if you're using water source from those suburbs.
And what about, you mentioned all of the suburbs, but there's, say, Green Point, for instance, is between Kincumber and Erina. It's not, or say Holgate and Matcham or East Gosford, which is sort of just on the surrounding areas, not those suburbs.
they're not serviced by the same
Okay.
supply. So we actually turned off the Terrigal. Just to be clear, we turned off the Terrigal Reservoir at 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon when we first got news of this. And so that hasn't been supplying into the water system. So that's been supplied from other parts of the network. So if there was a positive test, because it takes a while to cure, I guess, if you're sampling for E. coli, you've got to let the water sit for a while to enable it to be large enough to be able to be detected. The sample was actually taken, some hours before we got the results back. So, but from 1 o'clock on, we isolated or turned off that reservoir, and all the water that's been supplied into this area has been from other sources. So, the risk is, mitigated, but people, to be cautious, we really want people to boil their water.
Absolutely.
Until they get further advice.
That's David Farmer, who is the CEO of the Central Coast Council. I know you are a very busy man, David, so we do appreciate your time this morning coming on to clear that up for us.
Right, thank you very much.
Cheers. Okay, so we'll just run through those suburbs just quickly one more time. If you've just tuned in, we are talking about the boil water alert for Terrigal, North Avoca, Avoca Beach, Copacabana, McMaster's Beach, Pickett's Valley, Erina Heights and Kincumber. You're advised to boil your water prior to consumption until further notice. There will be an update from the council about 3:30 this afternoon.
The Gina and Maddie Podcast.
For more great comedy shows like this, head to novapodcast.com.au.